Hi guys. So today we are going to talk about the neurological exam, which follows along with the cranial nerves from chapter 13. So the whole point of the neurological exam is to assess your sensory neuron and motor neuron function. The doctor will be looking for your responses to these various tests. So what it's going to do is determine if your nervous system is impaired somewhere. And the good thing about it is it's a really quick test. The doctor can complete it in as little as 5 minutes. So you probably are wondering what this test is, but chances are you or somebody you know has had it done at some point in time. When you go to the doctor, if he's ever asked you to hold your hands up and push against his or prevent him from pushing against you, that's part of the neurological exam. He's testing your nerve function. You know, when he says to shrug your shoulders up and against his push, against his pressure, that's part of the neurological exam. So it consists of a physical examination, and he also takes your history into account. And it's used to screen for a variety of different issues like TIA, stroke, any neurodegenerative issues going on, or simply an injury that might have happened, so some sort of trauma. So there are 6 subsets of the neurological exam: the mental status, the cranial nerves, sensory, motor, coordination, and gait. The picture is showing you an MS neurological exam. So the mental status is really checking for your orientation and your memory and your language. So they check your level of awareness, how alert you are, the degree of interaction you have, if you have a good orientation, you're following commands, you're coordinated, and if this is any different from the baseline. And again, they also take your history into account. Language, orientation, and memory are assessed by asking questions and, of course, making sure you understand what is being asked. And then also if you give appropriate responses to the content that they're looking at and in the order that we're asked. So they're checking for your recall and reading and writing abilities, performing specific actions that you're asked to perform. Prosody, which are patterns in poetry, volume, rate. If you have slow or slurred speech, is dysarthria. So as we know, the 12 cranial nerves serve the head and neck, and they function in movements and sensations, so the special senses and the general senses. Cranial nerve 10, the vagus nerve, has autonomic functions in both the thoracic and abdominal cavities, so that's the only one to extend beyond the head and neck. But testing these is going to allow us to assess the brainstem structures and the forebrain. So just a quick, what we're going to test here, cranial nerve 1 is olfactory. So you would use something to smell. So coffee is a good one, cloves are a good one, mint, to make sure that you can actually smell and don't suffer from anosmia. Cranial nerve 2 is the optic nerve, so they'll use the Snellen chart to make sure you can read it and test your vision out just like at the eye doctor. Cranial nerve 3 and 4, the ocular motor and trochlear, they're looking for your gaze control. So that's when you follow the pen or follow their finger. And cranial nerve 6, the abducens as well. Cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6 are often grouped together because they are the ones that are responsible for the movement of your eyeball. Cranial nerve 5 is the trigeminal nerve, so they will make sure that you can discriminate sensory points on your face. Cranial nerve 7, facial, they will do taste differentiation and make sure that things are tasting what they're supposed to taste like. Cranial nerve 8, the vestibular cochlear, they will do the Rin test and the Romberg test, and they involve putting a tuning fork at various parts on your skull to make sure that you can feel the vibrations. Cranial nerve 9, the glossopharyngeal, again, taste differentiation, but also the gag reflex. Cranial nerve 10, the vagus nerve, they'll have you repeat consonant sounds like la, ka, pa. to make sure that that's functioning properly. Cranial nerve 11 is a spinal accessory, so that's what the shoulder shrug and make sure that you can't push against his pressure. And then cranial nerve 12 is the hypoglossal, so they'll have you stick out your tongue and move it from side to side and around. Sensory speaking, the somatic senses like the skin, the muscles, the tendons, visceral senses, your organs such as your heart and stomach, and all of the homeostatic regulation that we have through the autonomic nervous system. The sensory exam is going to focus on the somatic or perceived senses. So we'll do light touch with a cotton-tipped applicator, like rub it across your face kind of thing, versus a pinprick, so hopefully you feel some pain. Not a lot of pain, obviously, just a little bit. Temperature, hot versus cold, vibrations using an oscillating tuning fork, and then sensing body movements or trying to locate a stimulus. The Romberg test for correct positioning, of course, and all of these are going to assess your senses and how well you are picking them up and reacting to them appropriately. The motor exam, you're going to activate voluntary movements. So they're going to be looking at the upper and lower motor neurons. The motor exam is going to test the function of these neurons and the muscles that they control. So for tone, you're going to have a passive range of motion, and they're going to look at the resting tension. Muscle bulk, they will look at structural issues and see if you have any scarring. For strength, they're going to test the agonist and antagonist pairs, left versus right differences in strength. So your muscles contracting against resistance, basically. And pronator drift with your eyes closed, your arms extended, forward-facing palms. Upward, you have supination. If you drift, there's possible supination maintenance failure, so something could be going wrong. Reflexes, of course, are a good one. Sensory input is going to generate a direct motor response. There's two groups tested, the deep tendon stretch reflex and the superficial reflex. So the deep tendon stretch reflex is when they do a strong tap on a tendon, like the knee jerk, for example, when they tap your knee and your knee pops up. Superficial is just a gentle skin stimulation, so associated muscle contractions with that. So like the picture shows you, if they just, that's what I'm looking for, if they just glide lightly across the bottom of your foot, how you should react. The normal reaction is your toes go down into a flexion. The abnormal reaction is your toes extend, and that's the Babinski reflex. Now the Babinski reflex is normal in babies. If you stroke the bottom of a baby's foot, their toes will fan out. However, as you grow into adulthood and your systems mature, you should curl down. If you have a Babinski reflex as an adult, that's a sign that there's something wrong. So all of these tests are going to indicate proper lower motor neuron function. And if you have a problem somewhere, it could mean that you're going into paralysis or losing your reflexes. Some common arm reflexes, the biceps, the triceps, the brachioradialis, and then flexing the digits. You got the knee jerk reflex and then the plantar flex. Coordination testing, you're looking for proper cerebellar function. There are subtests that are going to target the appendicular versus the axial. So your limbs versus your posture and your gait. The appendicular, you have the tremor check, where your arms are out and you're holding it and potentially holding books or something. The check reflex, you got contraction control. The finger to nose tests, your alternating muscle groups, rapid alternating movements, and speech consonants, again with the la, ka, pa. Gait can be a separate part of the exam. Normal gait basically requires us to have a bunch of systems interacting. You don't really think about walking, but to walk takes a lot. You have to have your vision working because you have to be able to see where you're going, strength in order to stand upright, of course, but then also to actually walk. Balance and coordination because you're on two legs, so you have to be able to balance yourself and coordinate that walking. And of course, your joints, they have to be functioning as well. So they'll look at the base of the gait, and then they'll have you balance on one foot, and then arm swinging, and then the time spent on each leg. They'll have you heel walk, toe walk, and test all of these different things so that they can compile your overall gait. And it can really say if something is wrong, because like I said, all of those systems have to work together just to walk. So if something is wrong with your gait, there could be something wrong with one of those systems. So that's it for the neurological exam. There are a lot more detailed neurological exams, and you can find an amazing set if you Google it, of course. But this is just the basics to kind of give you an idea of what's going on with it and why. So if you have any questions, as always, just send me a message. Otherwise, I will talk to you when we cover chapter 14. Bye.